Good evening. Welcome to 4 Days with Shais. This is evening number 2 of 4. And tonight we have lots of great content coming to you live from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And in a moment we'll hear from Rabbi Taub and our in studio guest. But first, I want to do a little review of the campaign. After all, this is a campaign. We're here to raise $500,000 over the course of this week for SoulWords to support the funding necessary to keep SoulWords' work and everything that you love about what Rabbi Taub brings to you on a regular basis, and all that costs money. So I did want to start off by reading a few donations that just came in. I see here Yoel Caroline, just a minute ago, $72. And this is a beautiful donation from Yerachmiel and Rivka Leah Jacobson. Much haslacha, Rabbi Shais Taub, $4,700. And there is lots of others that I'd love to read out over the course of the evening. There's also teams. I see a few more teams since yesterday. Just in no particular order, I'm seeing Meaningful Minute has a team page and going for $20,000. Parenting alumni, which is something we're about to talk about. Rabbi Taub's parenting program and his thoughts and takes on the importance of parenting ourselves, so we can, not do a bunch of bad things to the next generation. And this is the parenting alumni. We are grateful mothers and fathers who are alumni of Rabbi Shais Taub's life-changing parenting course, and they are at $4,252. That's huge. And we have a team page, Shara B'tachon fans, that's really coming through strong. We are grateful beneficiaries of the paradigm shifting Shahar B'tachon classes elucidated by Rabbi Taub, his parenting workshops, and the broader SoulWords platform, and would encourage others to partake as well. Yeah. SoulWords email list. How about that, Rabbi Taub? You sent out an email blast last week with the subject title, "Please unsubscribe." And I thought you were doing that as like a gimmicky, tacky thing, but you were actually serious, and huge kudos to you as someone who's survived many a charity campaign spam over the last few months. And I guess there's healthy people out there who know how to have boundaries and separate. I could get an email. It doesn't mean it's my problem. I don't really know how to do that yet. Perhaps one day when I take up some of these wonderful courses that you give. Or maybe I'll just call you for some free therapy, considering that you're a therapist and you can help me with that. But as it is right now, I get a little semi-panic attack every time some guy who I was in yeshiva with in 2007 thinks it's my responsibility to fund new doorway for his Chabad house that I've never. But anyway, but you actually said, if this is too much for you, heads up, I'm doing a campaign this week. And yet, you have a SoulWords email list page that is coming through at one of the 24% towards the goal of $20,000. How about that? You can't hear it, but there's a lot of applause in this room right now. SoulWords WhatsApp broadcast team page, they're at 11% of the $20,000 goal. And if any of you would like to subscribe to get updates about what's going on at SoulWords, and there's also unique content that Rabbi Taub sends out just to his WhatsApp broadcast list, little miniature, stream of consciousness stuff that comes to him at 3 a.m. on the way to his refrigerator, dried salami stuff. You have these 3 a.m. little dried salami runs, and sometimes you can get in on that. And then what do we have here?
Why is there dried salami in the refrigerator?
Well, we'll find out tonight. We'll ask you. You should know, the dried salami from the ceiling, the delicatessen. Chicago had one of the highest concentrations of Jewish delis before New York.
My great-grandfather, Moshe Lieberson, Oliver Sholem, he was a butcher on the southwest side of Chicago, the old Jewish neighborhood on Maxwell Street, for whatever it's worth.
We're going to get into some more juicy details about some of the history of the south side of Chicago and Rabbi Taub. And I wonder if there's a slight relationship between the fact that you come from a long line of
Butchers?
kosher butchers and early immigrants to Jewish Chicago,
Yeah.
pre-Holocaust.
Yeah, that's true.
And you got less baggage.
Pre-Soviet Union. They came over pre-Soviet Union.
Right. So they came to these golden pastures in search of a better life, not running away from some of the stuff
Well, there were Cossacks there, Chai.
And then you wonder why
there were pogroms. It wasn't the sunshine and lollipops.
Well, you want to go down with suffering Olympics? We could do this. But
anyways, yeah. What were you gonna say?
Oh, well. At one point tonight, I'm going to have to ask you to check your
privilege.
Your privilege.
Yeah.
And if you wonder why some people might misassociate you as a therapist, it might be because this is news to them about all this, love and acceptance and all that other good stuff.
Yeah.
Considering
you're saying because my family came over before Stalinism and the Holocaust, so I sort of had the benefit of being like
the recipient
fourth generation American and avoided some of that trauma, and that's why I'm all lovey-dovey. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and you think that some of us will take that for granted, and then isn't this obvious to you that a rabbi would be telling you this as a Torah source for these wonderful Goyish ideas like love and acceptance?
Wait, Goyish ideas like what? Love and acceptance?
By the way, they put me in this chair. It's just giving me this whole hubris that I get to.
Chaim, you actually were eyeing that chair.
This chair. I want to say this.
I didn't even know what it was called, and you came over and you told me the name of it. What's it called?
I would like to think that the folks at Secret Labs would do some right by SoulWords and give something to this campaign for the free advertisement about to give. But I think they're a bunch of young yuppie Asians because I watched a bunch of their YouTube videos. I spent an insane amount of time researching chairs. While my bills and other responsibilities were piling up, I spent about a week and a half full time researching the most comfortable chair to avoid for productivity, obviously. I have 2 of these. I love them. I was just showing you some of the features, and now I'm allowed to sit into it. And it's empowering. It makes one feel like they have just the go of the place. I can't hear a thing you're saying.
After we raised the $500,000, don't forget to mention, and if you're watching on YouTube, go to soulwords.org/live. I'm gonna say the line SOULWORDS.org/live, and give there. And when we raise the $500,000, how many of what are these chairs called?
Secret Labs.
Secret Labs. How many Secret Labs chairs could we buy with $500,000? We probably negotiate.
Check your privilege and stop assuming that I know things like numbers and stuff. Which brings us to our next guest. We have a special guest in studio. Am I right? We have a special guest in studio. And if they could go to the camera, Rabbi Taub, tell us a little bit about who you're about to speak to.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. This is my camera right here. Yeah? Am I looking in the right camera? Yeah, they're giving me the thumbs up. Okay, all right. So tonight, our first topic is parenting. So I was looking for maybe some alumni of the parenting course who would be willing to come down here and talk about their experience. And I noticed a donation from somebody who I know in real life who actually, I think, even made a dedication in honor of the parenting course. I believe that was the dedication. And I was like, what? I know who this is. It is Rabbi Yeshua Lustig, who is the principal of 6th and 7th. Did I say the right ones? 6th and 7th grades, Oli Torah in Crown Heights. now in his 13th year. And I said, you know what, this could be really interesting because here we have somebody who's both a parent and took the parenting course, but also an educator and sort of sees the whole situation from both perspectives. So I thought it'd be interesting to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me. And when you asked me to join, I was hesitant at first, but Al Tzakara Sataiv for the phenomenal parenting course, which I took this past summer. I felt that I'll say yes, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We appreciate that you did it. And okay, so without sounding self-serving, what you say there was a good course. What did you like about it?
So, look, as parents, we're always trying to grow. We're always trying to learn. We're always looking to be inspired. We're always looking to remain focused. And it was in the summer, and it said, a parenting course, 6 Tuesday evenings or 6 Wednesday evenings. I have more time in the summer than I do during the year. And I figured, let me sign up. I, Baruch Hashem, wasn't coming from a place where my parenting was in crisis or I was desperate or, reading every book out there. And I signed up just like, let's do this. And I'm not going to say surprised because there was high expectations from you, Rabbi Shais Taub, but it was truly, I would say it's extremely valuable, and I will say it's highly recommended. There were many things that I learned. I mean, there you have the 6 evenings, each one focusing on another point. And that's something that remains with me until today, all the things that I learned.
So I'm going to just like break open a subject here. Sometimes today, I think maybe especially, the way that it's perceived is you have almost like 2 teams. You have the parents and then you have the school. Now, you're a parent. You took the parenting course. You have your own family, Baruch Hashem. But also you deal with everyone else's family because you're a principal. So maybe, and sometimes there's even some tension, I think, between parents and schools. And I certainly have sometimes been drawn into commenting about that. I think sometimes my comments about it may have been misinterpreted, but I'm not here to set the record straight on that. That's really not the point. I would like to actually focus more on your unique perspective to sort of shed light on, is there conflict? Is there not conflict? If there is, how to mitigate it? Like, talk about parents and schools.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about. So first of all, people think that there's a lot of tension between parents and schools. They think that it's much more than it exists. I remember when I took the job, you mentioned my 13th year, Baruch Hashem. People thought I was crazy. Like, why are you going into a school, in a community school, and the parents own you, and they're so disrespectful.
You don't need that trouble,
and
right?
They don't appreciate you.
Yeah.
And from all the reasons to join the job, which there were many, Baruch Hashem, to take the job, parents was certainly the one that you were warned most about and most worried about. The bigger surprise I had in becoming a principal is how much the parents appreciate the schools. I think the mechanchim and the schools are doing a phenomenal job. I believe these days parents are in awe of the schools. A lot of parents look up to their sons' teachers, principals with a lot of admiration. They sometimes express it, and like sometimes they'll say, like, "How do you run a classroom with 25 kids? I can't even put one kid to bed." They'll say something like that, or "How do you have an assembly with 400 boys?" And like, how do you do this? I think they really appreciate how the schools have really come a very long way. And a lot of them are realizing that the yeshivas are only much more better than they were when they went to school. And I think as parents, they're finding the parenting harder than when their parents raised them. So we have like kind of this shift right now where, in a way, every school, Ali Torah I could speak for because I work there and I work with so many talented mechanchim. And by the way, many mechanchim who work in all the Chabad schools across the United States have come through Ali Torah. And as a principal, you're sometimes the foreign minister of your school, so you get to work with a lot of other schools and a lot of mechanchim. So I could say that firsthand, I know that people are really in it for the right reasons. They care. They're really thinking over each detail. They're doing like Hevu Masunim Badin. The Rebbe has a sikha about that, really considering each Talmud, what does he need, what does he not need, when you apply the pressure, because sometimes you need pressure to learn. This kid, actually our job is to remove pressure because he's so anxious. And there's so much thought going into it, so much care, so much love. And very efficient. Baruch Hashem, the schools are very efficient, and the parents are actually admiring and in awe of the schools. And I would say parenting today got a lot harder than it was back in the day. We could probably theorize why. The technology, the mother being needed to work. When I was a kid, my mother didn't go to work, right? She was home the whole day, ready to greet us. So there's a lot of reasons why parenting got harder. And so there's no tension. I don't think there's tension. And I believe the magic in chinuch takes place when the school and the parents do work together. That's where the magic really takes place.
Okay, but I do want to just mention, I don't think everybody assumes that. I think sometimes people assume that for a school, the ideal parent is one that they never hear from. Like they don't want to deal with parents. You're saying it's actually, not only is it not a negative part of your job, you're saying it's a positive part of your job, the interaction with the parents. But I think people are surprised to hear that. So it's good that you're saying it.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to mention, Rabbi Shais, you may remember, it's already quite a few years ago. I don't remember the year. You once, there's an organization, Counterforce, and they hosted you. They made like a principal's luncheon, obviously, to tell us about their services, but they hosted you as the attraction, and you gave a presentation to principals. It was for principals only.
I remember it was in Borough Park.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was for, all the schools of Brooklyn or of New York.
Right, maybe a couple of avatars there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was another shir that I heard by you, which actually had a very big impact on me. So thank you for that. The title was something like How to Engage Your Parents, or our role of engaging parents. And you very much spoke about the paradigm shift. That's the word you used before. That was, I think, a word you used then, of principals not being I want to talk about how parents view the principal. I want to talk about the principals viewing the parents. That, you get a phone call from your school. It's not just like, oh my gosh, what's happened?
Right.
My
You
kid's
see a
in
missed
trouble.
call from your kid's principal. Your stomach
exactly,
drops. Oh no, what did my kid do?
And by the way, every time I start a phone call till today, the first thing I say, hi, this is Yeshua Lista calling, all is well. And they always say, thank you for that. 'Cause I was in a meeting and I dropped everything for this. So yeah, I always start off with all is well. Yeah. Even though sometimes things are not well, but they think that maybe their kid's in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Right, so parents do that. So I always start the calls that way. So you spoke then very much about the role of a principal, not just worried about his school, but if you're worried about chinuch at large, the parents are seeking guidance. And you spoke about how you wrote that Ami column and people are always asking you questions, how much guidance people are seeking out there. And you kind of opened their eyes about that and put us in that paradigm shift that we have to be the guide to the parents and hold their hands.
So you mentioned that it was in Borough Park, and there was only a couple of avatars there. There were hundreds of principals there. So sometimes I say like secret Lubavitcher messages what was I really saying? If I would have been speaking, to Unsere, I would have said that chinuch is not just a job, it's a shlichus. And a shlichus, I'm saying that,
I think you would have said that being a principal is not just a job of running a school. Being a principal is a shlichus and chinuch. And parents are the primary mechanchim.
Right. And the parents are the mechanchim
of their children.
So just like
more than they realize
principal,
sometimes,
you are working with teachers
and students
and you're coordinating with parents, and you're not working in a building and running classes for a certain amount of hours. You're actually being brought into these families. You're an extension of these families, and that's what I was really I was saying.
100%. So after your course, I actually came across a Maina of the Rebbe, which I brought with me here tonight.
Oh, great.
And it basically, what you were trying to inspire the principals to do then, the Rebbe says, I'll read it in Hebrew and the translation. Okay. I don't know what the question was, but the Rebbe says, to answer your question.
To an educator.
But I'm not sure.
Apparently.
It seems like it, right? So the Rebbe says, Bechlal, Hirois Chazal, Shala Adam Liyos Mo'orav Ben Abriyos, Ubefrat, Hamisaskim Bechinuch, Sha'aleim Liyos Bekirov Gam Im Hayri Hayeladim. Why? Sheze Moisif Bahashba'asam Ala Talmidim, and Gam Besichas Chulin, in parentheses, Be'im Eina Sicha Asura, Ef Shalahatoi Sasicha Le'inyan Shetia Te'el Izbai. And there's more to the Maina, but I'll read that in English. I brought the translation. In reply to your question, in general, our sages teach us that a person should be friendly with others. In particular, those who are involved in education should be friendly with the children's parents, because this increases their influence on the students. Even when one is conducting a regular conversation, as long as it isn't prohibited, it is possible to direct the conversation towards productive subjects. And I think your main point was that that's our responsibility. And you also stressed how much the olam out there is seeking guidance today, and people are having a really hard time. And I'm a parent myself, and I'll say the same thing. Sometimes it's easier to run mincha for 250 boys than to put 4 kids to bed or 3 kids to bed. And parenting is hard. And And any guidance that the parents could get, and especially when the school and the parents are aligned, I think that's where the magic in chinuch happens. And I could tell you that in Ali Torah, and again, this is very much, I believe, inspired from that talk, and not just by me, other mechanchim, we have a little division that's called proactive chinuch. We hosted a couple of events where we have a session, how to prepare your son for going to camp. We have a session, how to prepare your son for a new year in school. These are all available on our Proactive Chinuch YouTube channel. We have a presentation, how to prepare your son for his bar mitzvah. We have also a presentation for parents of like 7th grade, how to talk to your son as he's maturing into the bar mitzvah age, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And whenever we do these events, the parents are beyond thankful and so appreciative.
So I just want to comment, because a lot of people are watching. If you're a young person and a young adult and you're looking, I'm sure there's somebody out there to whom this pertains, at a very meaningful way of dedicating yourself to the future of the Jewish people. I think to put yourself in a chinuch position, the way that you're describing it, where you actually become a guide and a mentor to families and become an extension of their home and a resource to them, I think it can be very meaningful. And I want to encourage people who have that talent to look into that. We understand that you have a Gemara shir to go teach. And there's a car, they're telling me there's a car waiting for you to take you to your Gemara shir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't know you were going to say that in public, but okay, yes.
It's okay, you learn Gemara, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's just like a little private share.
It's a
but
private shir.
yeah,
Okay. So nobody should crash the party.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, great. So they're going to take us to a video now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hi everyone, my name is Yair Elbaz. I'm a shliach in a city near Paris, France. I wanted to encourage everyone to join in and participate in Rabbi Shais annual campaign. I thought a lot about what to say and how to say it, and then I realized I had the perfect idea that I heard from Rabbi Taub himself. They say there was a guy who had to go to a restaurant for a very important client for his company, and he realized the restaurant was very, very expensive, and he was very worried about it. And his boss came over to him and told him, "You won't have to pay for it because you have the company's credit card." And then he was very assured. Why am I saying that? Because when we come to a campaign, sometimes we think that we got a lot of people asking us to participate, but we have to realize that the Eibeshter will give us, Hashem will give us enough money to give to everyone, especially when it's for such an important cause. I still have to explain why I'm giving this example, because Rabbi Taub gave it for the example of chinuch, that when you're having hardships with your kids and you think you don't have enough strength to be able to educate your kids and to have enough patience and so on and so forth, you have to realize that the Eibeshter is giving you all the keches you need. So here too, it's the same. I think SoulWords is doing a lot of things. I think a lot of them we don't realize, because as I heard yesterday from Mrs. Sivan Rav Meir, she said at the Kines Shluchis banquet, she said that the most beautiful stories is the ones we don't hear. So, as I know for myself, that Rabbi Taub has brought me a lot of change in the way I educate my kids, in the way I learn, in the way I teach, because I'm using a lot of his classes to teach on my shlichus, and I'm very, very grateful to him for that. So I encourage you also to participate in this beautiful campaign, and I wish him a lot of success.
We're on? I have a Zoom guest here. How you doing?
Sure.
I can... Let me speak again. Let me make sure I can hear you.
Shalom Aleichem.
Oh, Aleichem Shalom. Okay, excellent. I'm having a flashback to a few days ago. We were sitting across from each other in real life. We were at the Isle in Queens.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely is.
Yeah. You live in New Jersey, and but you came into Queens, and I live very close to the Isle, and we got together. Okay. So what are we doing tonight? They just told me to sit here and talk to you.
Yeah, well, I wanted to compare with the virtual world. I think the first is actually new about 2 years.
Well, you know what? The sound is really choppy. Can we deal with that? Because I'm getting like every other word. Can we get the sound dealt with properly? Yeah. Let's try again.
While our tech guys are gonna fix this sound, give me a heads
they
up.
get it?
It's already good.
It's good. Okay, fine. All right.
Is this bad? Oh, I think I. Wait.
Yeah, just keep talking so they can deal with the sound and get it. They'll fix it if you keep talking.
Yeah, what I want is I think the format was.
No, it's cutting out. You got to fix it. What? We'll come back to him. Okay, so they're gonna fix the sound, and we're gonna come back to you. Okay. Okay.
I want to ask you about a few of these team pages. I mentioned a few before,
Okay.
and someone is at 191% of their goal.
Who's at
So
191%?
it's Shirley Bleichfield, who we mentioned yesterday.
Wow.
He's got conservative.
Shirley
I
Bleichfeld
respect
team.
that. He didn't cave to whatever this 20,000 ask was. He said, I can
He
raise
surpassed
it.
his
And
goal
he
already.
went well beyond it.
Baruch Hashem.
But
That's amazing.
kudos to everyone who took on.
Really? Is
the
that? Are you
commitment.
sure, Chaim? Can you show me that?
Yeah, 191%.
191%.
Yeah,
Amazing. Okay.
I mean of
Of his goal.
Of his goal.
Okay.
So we mentioned some of these. There's a Tanya.
The Tanya
team
team. Yeah, this is
page.
Monday morning, 11 a.m.
Right, we spoke about that
Yeah.
yesterday. There's a Shluchim team page.
Shluchim team. Yeah, that's
Emotional
a very important team to me.
intelligence. Salon Leia.
Yeah.
This is your regular Monday spot.
No, she's a big supporter though of what we do. So.
Wonderful, and they're well on their way. I saw a few donations came in today, and Rivka Bayarski has a team page. Suri Angle. If you know any of these people,
You should give to their team.
you can support them by supporting Rabbi Taub, and you score little points with them in the process. It's, Hasidic Hipster Girl.
Yeah, it's another team.
She's got a very popular Instagram page.
Yes.
I'm not going to pretend I don't know what that is.
One of my, I spoke about last night about when I teach things that people who teach others take from me, and then they repackage it, and then they use it when they're teaching.
Teachers who teach teachers are the
Teachers
best
who
kind
teach
of teachers.
Right, a teacher's teacher. Right. So
We're going to do some Babs trivia later on tonight.
what trivia?
Babs.
What's that?
Barbara Streisand.
Oh, Barbara Streisand. Okay, so we spoke about Burt Bacharach, so why not? One of the things that I prioritize is influencing influential people. And the reason why I prioritize it is because each of us only has so many minutes in the day. So when you work with somebody who influences others, you magnify your impact. And so, yeah, I give that a lot of credence. The idea of working with people who have a platform and who are influencing other people. Yeah.
And I want to read just a few donations in particular and some dedications. And I want to say this in the as a way to sort of, I encourage anyone who may wonder, oh, I can't donate anything substantial or what you think may seem substantial.
So you're going to call out some people who made small donations?
No, I'm going to encourage anyone that If you feel more comfortable, do it anonymously.
Yeah.
But I will read any dedication that I see, and I'll read anyone,
Even if
it's
somebody gives
$5.
$1, you will read their dedication.
Yes, because despite what you may think, this man is not only not a therapist, he's got a very weak general self-esteem altogether.
That's
And
Oh, and you want them to give me praise?
I think.
Can I tell you something? But on a very serious
I didn't say
note,
praise.
The
I
first
said
time I did a campaign, which was 4 years ago, after the campaign was all over, after I raised the money, I just sat for a whole 2-3 days and just read the comments that people wrote, and it was like one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. So yes, I do read these comments, and they mean a lot to me. So have that in mind. Yeah, no pressure that you have to write
no.
a thoughtful comment, but yes, it is appreciated. Yeah.
I see you. I affirm you.
Yes.
No, but seriously speaking, that's part of what's happening tonight. To give Rabbi Taub both the financial and the
Emotional
support, and
support.
Yeah, we could say that outright. People
I'm
letting
not
you know
joking, by the
that
way.
this
Running a
does
I
land.
100% recommend to anybody who has any type of excuse to do so, do a crowdfunding campaign, because it's not just a way of getting the financial boost that you need to do whatever work you're doing. And I encourage anyone, if you're on the fence about it and you have a cause that you need to raise money for, definitely do it, because not only you end up raising the money you need to continue doing the work that you're doing, but there's nothing better for your sense of purpose and direction and mission than getting all these positive comments about the work you're doing. It's very therapeutic. So I'd highly recommend it.
And I should use that opportunity to say that I think you're a wonderful person. Having said that, we have some wonderful donations I wanted to read out specifically.
I got nervous because when someone says, I think you're a wonderful person.
Yeah.
Having said that, and they're about to pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is usually the knife comes out when they call you a wonderful person, and then there's like that however, and then
you got to worry if
you got to worry. Yeah.
They come out of the gate too strong. Chaim Baruch and Sarah Alevsky, cause his kid called and said we need to donate. Also cause #Shais Ace.
Yeah.
Is that an inside joke?
And if it is, it's so inside that I don't even get it.
Your ace is in my book.
Thank you.
Having
But you
said
know what
that,
he's referring to? You know what he's referring to, Rabbi Alevsky there? He's referring to my call center is my kids. So I have my daughters making calls, and my 10-year-old daughter, Rachel, called him, and he thought it was cute.
I thought it was really a nice surprise and very, very sweet to have your son here last night at the end.
Yes.
And
people really seem to like that. Yeah. So he may come back. He may come by again tonight.
Can I ask you something about something here? Because people
Can I ask
do
you
want
about
to get
the silly putty or whatever it is that you have?
Yeah, it's the extra firm.
I don't mind that you do this in the middle of my live stream to raise $500,000, but I would just at least it's a little bit. Let's just acknowledge that you have it. It shouldn't be the elephant in the room.
Continue. Go to the audience. Testimonials. We'll do a review of my fidgets later. We're doing a parenting segment in a few minutes.
Yes, a parenting segment. Yes.
After we're going to first go to our Zoom guests, and then we're going to. But I wanted to read some of these beautiful testimonials, and as it pertains to your parenting course. This is one here from all the way from Australia. I'm finding
what number card is this?
Oh, I'm going in order, like you told me.
Okay.
I'm finding the lessons extremely valuable. The parenting course changed my life. Everything I learned with Rabbi Taub is fascinating and inspirational. I do believe that his parenting course is life-changing. This is from, well, I don't know, it doesn't, MDM. I do believe that this parenting course is a life-changing course. What we learn and apply will change our generations to come, as it provides us with the tools we need not only to thrive as parents, but also give our children the opportunity to be different, better human beings. With so many opinions out there and so much judgment these days, SoulWords gave me a clear outlook on how to love our children. I would like to speak to that personally. Something that grinds my gears in general, listening to. All right, I'm not going to do it b'derech shlila and just what it isn't. But if I had a dime for every time I heard, this is the thing, this is the most important, and if this, and it is refreshing to hear someone who speaks with just a level headed, nuanced sense of, no, this is not everything. And, you know, not, anyway. So there is a lot out there. And be wary of anyone who tells you this is the only anything. And having said that, I love listening to Shiurim, but when I do, I make it Rabbi Taub's classes, and this is time to read testimonials. And here's another one, and it's number 4. I'm a trauma therapist with a focus on attachment injuries. Learning from Rabbi Taub about connecting with our children in a way that is so in line with the latest psychological, and neurobiological research, but is completely Torah-based, has helped me immensely. Without it, it's almost like chas v'shalom, the damage happens within Yiddishkeit and Jewish families, and the healing is outside. Ooh, I maybe should have read that when we talk about you not being a therapist. I would love to unpack that. But I'm going way over time. Rabbi Taub, we'd like to sort of delve into your parenting course, and you spoke about it here and there, but why did you start it? What was the impetus behind it? And what has the last year been like doing it? Because I think you've done a number of them.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you about the genesis of the parenting course. Last night we had a whole section about bitochen, about trust, about shar bitochen, and I spoke about the fact that the COVID lockdown was the impetus to finally tackle that book and give nightly classes. So it's interesting. The parenting course also had its origins in the COVID lockdown. Again, everyone was just on Zoom all day, looking for things to do, and all of my speaking engagements were canceled. That used to be my bread and butter. I mean, I've been traveling around speaking for over 15 years, and it used to be the main thing that I did. And then February 2020 came, and I remember my last gig that I did before everything shut down. I think it was Toronto Biker Cholim in February of 2020. So my friend Levi Shemtov, who I mentioned last night also, by the way, in connection with the Shara B'Tochen, because his father, Mendel Shemtov, got the instruction from the Rebbe to learn Shara B'Tochen. But so Levi Shemtov from Detroit, from West Bloomfield, called me, and he said, "What do you think about parenting?" And I said, "And parenting is very important." So he said, "Well, the way I see it is, it could be the most important thing." And he said, "Think about it. Parents are the most influential people in the world because everybody grows up in a family, and that sort of molds them and their whole future. And we need to help people have the tools to set up their children for success in life." And as he was talking to me about it, it became very clear to me that not to use a word that sounds grandiose. I mean, it does sound grandiose, but there's something messianic about parenting. Messianic in the sense of the perfection of the world. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. And this is how I phrased it to Levi after we were discussing it for a while. It finally it crystallized in my mind, and I was able to formulate it like this. I said, I realize that most of the problems in the world are caused by people, right? The planet on its own, and it just does what it does. But most of the problems we have are man-made. People cause problems, okay? People do good things as well, but most of the problems are caused by people. Okay. Now, most people, the problems that cause the most damage, yeah, are definitely man-made. Now, most people cause problems because they have problems. Like they say, hurt people hurt people. Okay, fine. I'm working my way backward, trying to trace the origin of it. And most people have problems mostly because they got messed up in childhood. Meaning it goes back all the way to their early formative years. And most of those problems that they have, not all, but most of them, they got from their parents. Not saying parents are bad people who are messing up children, but I'm just saying the reality is, if you trace it back, a little bit better parenting would have a ripple effect of causing almost all of the problems of this world to at least be ameliorated to some level, if not eliminated. So I became very passionate about this idea that if we could give parents tools to parent the next generation better, we would actually be healing the universe. And it does sound grandiose, but I see it in microcosm constantly. I can safely say that more than any other project that I've worked on in all of the years that I've been a rabbi, I would definitely say that the parenting course is the one that's the most impactful. As far as people coming to me and saying that their life was changed. You know, you can give a class, you can give a speech, and people will say, oh, that was life-changing. But it is likely that the words will be forgotten within a few days. Very likely, if not almost certain. The parenting course, and I think part of the beauty of it is it's about, I hate to overuse the word paradigm shift, which we used earlier tonight and as well as last night, but it gives parents a new way of viewing themselves. And once you open up their eyes and they see it for themselves, then it almost becomes irrelevant what words I chose to use. It's not them being inspired by my words. It's almost like me just pointing and saying, hey, you see this vision? And then they're able to hold on to that. And people will come up to me months, and now we've been doing the parenting course for almost 2 years. So now years after they first took the course, and tell me that vision, which they gained from the parenting course, is still clear in their mind and guiding them on a daily basis in having a more meaningful relationship with their children. Now, I should probably spell out what that vision is, and it's hard to do justice to it in a very short segment like we have here, but to just give you a small glimpse of that vision. To me, the vision that I want every parent to have begins with a vision of self. Meaning before we even talk about who your child is and how to view your child, and certainly before we talk about how to deal with your child, we need to talk about ourselves, how to view yourself. The first thing we do in the parenting course is we talk about self-concept. Who are you as a parent? A parent is a very funny entity. On one hand, a parent is a human being of flesh and blood. On the other hand, as I point out in the first lesson of my 6-week parenting course, if you look at the 10 Commandments, the first tablet are obligations between man and God, and the second tablet are obligations between man and man. So you have on one tablet you have worship of your creator, and the other tablet you have interpersonal relationships. The commandment to honor your mother and father, surprisingly, is not on the tablet with the interpersonal relationships. It's on the tablet with how to worship your creator. And I explain to the parents that take my parenting course, the Talmud tells us there are 3 partners in a person: mother, father, and God. And that when it comes to parenting, you've been elevated to this unique status of co-creator, that a child and a parent are in a relationship that it's not just an interpersonal relationship like one person to another person, but actually a parent serves in a capacity that is akin to a creator. And for better, for worse, a parent has the power to make or break, God forbid, a child. And we see this time and time again. what 1,000 educators and therapists and experts can come together and attempt to achieve with one child will never even come close to what one loving parent is able to accomplish. There is a special power. It's a godly power. It's a God-given power that a parent was given. And I tell parents all the time, the beginning of your parenting transformation has to begin with the transformation of a vision of yourself. You have to realize how influential you are. You have to realize how empowered you have been, that you have the company credit card. You are not going at this alone as a finite mortal being. You are partnered with the infinite one, and he has your back. And just like we know, our sages tell us every child is born with the material resources that the family will need in order to support that child, and that we don't have to worry and make calculations and worry about family planning, that we won't have the material resources for our child. I always tell parents the emotional resources, how much more so, are coming there. They are available. That's not to say all parents tap into it. Sometimes people have the company credit card and they don't use it. They don't draw on those resources. There are parents, unfortunately, who we know failed at parenting, but the potential to succeed, and to succeed in a way that surpasses any other accomplishment that a human being is normally capable of accomplishing, that potential is there, and it was given to you from the moment that you became a parent. And that's one of my key messages to parents, is to claim that vision of yourself, to act on it, to draw upon it, to use that power, and to realize that you can be everything that your child needs you to be. Whatever it is that your child needs, you can provide that. Now, that's not to say sometimes we don't contract outside services. We need a therapist for this, or we need an expert for that. But even that, you see, its power, the effectiveness of the contracted help, you see, is based upon the involvement of parents. When there's a parent who's just sort of, they run a payroll and they're hiring all the experts to deal with the kid, but the parent isn't involved, there's limited success. But when you have a devoted parent who's there in a loving way, who's showing up and connecting to their child, and the child feels safe and the child feels seen, then there's nothing that a parent can't accomplish. So that's the first message. There's so many more parenting messages, but the first message is to empower parents to realize the literally godly power that they were endowed with. And our children deserve that. Our children deserve the best of us. We need to be the best versions of ourselves. Yeah, okay, so I'm getting the sign. Oh, we have 2 more minutes? Okay, so I can speak another parenting concept for 2 minutes? Okay, great. So 3 minutes, okay. So as long as I've been given the floor. I'll speak about one other point. In addition to the importance of this shift in how parents view themselves, the next concept that follows is how parents view children. How should parents view children? So the sort of default is that we view them as these little people who sometimes they're cute, sometimes they're annoying. They live in our homes and we're sort of obligated to take care of them. And if things get really out of control, we can just force them, at least to a certain age, we can just force them to do whatever we want because we're big and they're small. And that's sort of the default how people view children. In my parenting course, and not just in my parenting course, anytime I speak to parents, I really plead with people to have a spiritual view of their children. A lot of times people are resistant to the spiritual approach because they say, I'm not like that. You know, why do we have to invoke these lofty, mystical ideas? But here's what I want to tell you. If you really, really want to have a game changer in your parenting, then you have to be willing to go deep, and you have to be willing to revisit your whole premise and to look at your child from a completely spiritual perspective. And here's what I mean. When your child was an infant in their crib, They were perfect. They could do no wrong. And you had so much pride in them. Now, they hadn't accomplished anything. What are you proud of? They don't do anything. I mean, by all rights, you should say to them, listen, grow up, learn how to talk. We'll go out for coffee. We'll see if we hit it off, and then I'll decide if I like you. But nobody says it. No normal person says that. You know why? Because we intuitively understand that a child, a baby, an infant, is worthy of unconditional acceptance and love, and they don't have to earn it. And we're right. We're completely right the way we view babies. And what we're really viewing, I argue, is their soul. Because the soul is unconditionally worthy and infinitely worthy and inherently worthy. And maybe it's because babies are newly arrived souls. They're souls who just came into embodiment. So maybe that's why we're more intuitively attuned to that, to see them as a soul and to give them that automatic validation. But then what happens is, unfortunately, they start to grow up, they develop a personality, they have a mind of their own, they start making their own choices. Surprise, surprise, God gave them free will. And all of a sudden, that inherent pride, that unconditional pride that we used to have of them when they were infants in the crib starts to slip away. And it's replaced, even worse, by conditional nachas, where we tell them, do this, and then I'll feel good about you. Do that, and then I won't be able to stare, I won't be able to look in your direction because I can't even look at your face because you disappointed me. And they feel this rejection, essentially, of their unconditional worth, which they once had, being pulled out from under them. And then they have no sense of self-worth. And then you try to take someone who has no sense of self-worth and motivate them. You know, it's hardly a surprise that you're not finding your attempts to educate them very effective. So we have to go back. Look at your child as a soul, just like when they were an infant in the crib. Look at them as a soul, an entity which is otherworldly, which is beyond. They're not just these little people. They're actually these eternal beings which are sojourning on the earthly plane. Acknowledge that, cherish that, understand that your child is essentially worthy. And from there, from that
And we are back. Apparently, we lost connection. It sucks for you guys because you missed some tear jerkers, I tell you. Wow, it was flying all over the room. And you can't redo it. You can't duplicate that stuff. But lucky for us, there's still a lot of suffering people and healing out there.
I don't think I ever had such an emotionally raw moment as we had. And then we found out the internet was cut off. Yeah.
But then again, there's always dial a Holocaust story, and we will do so right now. What do you say? Dial a Holocaust story?
What?
Dial a Holocaust story.
Is that a real thing?
It should be. I wanted to do a financial update because it's been a little while since we did. I'm refreshing the page, and behind Rabbi Taub, I'm not sure if the camera's on you, we hit 80,000. We hit 80,000. There's a lot of anonymous donations out there, and I think that does say something about the type of people who follow SoulWords and the nature of this work and the appreciation that people have. And it's very meaningful. We're at 81,000, and I wanted to read out a few dedications, and then we have a special guest in studio. Can I read one testimonial actually first, as it pertains to the parenting course that Rabbi Taub was speaking about just before? This was a private message, and Rabbi Taub told me that whoever wrote this gave permission for him to use it. It's a one message dated from November 21st of last year, and then a follow-up message. The first message is this parent writes, "What if I have hatred towards my 12-year-old self?" No, that was my own slip. What if I have hatred? I heard someone put it well. They said, "There's something about you that I really hate about myself." You ever heard that? What if I have hatred towards my 12-year-old because of the way he behaves? I'm not happy with him. I'm not interested in bonding with him. I only like him when he behaves. And then
What's the date?
This person wrote that message to you on November 21st.
Okay, because I want to tell you something. We did a parenting course, and I think that week was like week 1 or 2 of the 6-week parenting course, and that's when that would have been, November 21st.
Yeah, and then this is just less than a month later, and this message is
That's got to be more than a month later.
Was
it was
it?
after he finished the course? It's got to
Yes.
be more than a month later.
November 21st, and then, all right, over a month later.
It was definitely after he finished the course. Okay, I could check up the
All right.
date later. Yeah.
I know you're a busy man, Rabbi Tal, but I'm sending you an invite to my son's bar mitzvah because I owe you gratitude. Your course changed my life and my relationship with my son and kids. We came a long way and took your classes to use and was able to bond and connect with my son like never before. I can say that I benefited from it also because I was also craving the connection, and now, Baruch Hashem, with all the challenges that I have had with him, it was all orchestrated from Hashem in order to fulfill my desire and my son's desire, Kamayim Panim, and the timing for it right before the bar mitzvah is amazing. I'm excited for it, unlike a few months ago where the behavior was out of control. My son is mostly calm, just wanted to say thank you. So,
Yeah, that was a very meaningful. That was very meaningful feedback. And you see there, by the way, he doesn't mention that the child did anything different. It was his own transformation that completely changed the relationship. The parents' transformation, his own personal work, and that changed everything. Baruch Hashem. Yeah. And you did mention that he gave me permission to share.
Yeah.
Because it's I know a lot of people share with me personal things, and they shouldn't worry that I would go and share it. I was so moved by that text, where the change was so profoundly evident in just a short period of time. So I asked him permission to share it, and he said if it would help others, that he would be happy for me to share it. So
thank you.
Yeah.
And the parenting course alumni have a team that has been pushing strong yesterday and tonight. And there's a number of teams that are coming in strong. I'm seeing the Shar B'tachon team coming in strong, and the Tanya team, and to everyone who took on a team, thank you, and please encourage your friends and whoever else to donate on your page. And if you'd like to dedicate a donation of any kind, I will be happy to read it. There's a few recent donations that came in. From Anonymous, I can honestly say that you changed my life. Please tenfold and create more programs. So yes, that is not just hyperbole, because every year that you've run a campaign, the amount of programming and content that you're able to produce and do produce, I would say, is tenfold. And each year it just compounds on top of the other. And with the goal we're going for this year, I have no doubt that the amount of production and help and staff that you're able to hire is just going to increase the amount of stuff that you, because you are a wealth of stuff. I'm not going to just put in too many words there, but you have a lot to offer, and with the right amount of support, There's a lot of people who can use it. We're going to a special guest in studio.
Okay.
We have a birthday rabbi in studio who we're going to hear from in person. And for you watching, you may not hear it, but there is a happy birthday music
Coming
segue.
in with the cake right now.
Okay. Happy birthday to you. No, that's not the one I was going for. Rabbi Tab likes this one. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Tears and sorrow in the air. People dying everywhere. But happy birthday. Happy birthday. Okay, is that nice? You have a birthday, albeit with all the suffering around us. We have a special guest in the studio, Rabbi Yankel Raskin, who's known for a lot of different things in the Crown Heights community, but I will let him share more about that and what brings him to the studio tonight
On his birthday.
on his birthday.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
That's such an
After-
introduction. And it really is his birthday. It's not a joke. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And thank you.
37, right?
That's right. Say it again.
37.
Okay. Right, Rabbi Taub, so you invited me here to on this podcast, on this program, speaking about how you're not a
I'm
psychologist.
not a psychologist.
Okay.
That is correct.
So,
that's the title of this segment, actually.
And somehow it made sense for you to bring me as a therapist to, some type of
So that
compare
people
and
should see the
contrast.
difference,
right. So
right.
this is a therapist. This is not a therapist.
Don't you see the difference?
Yeah.
Isn't it obvious? Yeah.
He's got a cardigan, you don't.
If I would have a cardigan, then I would understand why people would.
That's one
Mistake
semester
me
in school,
for-
Rabbi Taub. Just the
Oh,
cardigan.
yeah? Which
There you
semester?
go.
Like the first semester? The,
Want
yeah.
to go there?
But you clearly didn't get to the point of the elbow patches on the cardigan because that's
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. It's
yeah.
always when we grow, right?
we should mention, by the way, Rabbi Lustig from Oli Torah was here in the first hour. We should mention that you're also affiliated with Oli Torah, with specifically a department that you're the founding director of. So maybe you want to just speak quickly about that so people understand sort of your role in the community.
Yeah. People often ask me, Yankee, how did Olatara reach out to you to get involved within the therapy department, create a department of wellness and student support? And there's a technical story. I got a call one day from one of the board members asking me to come join them. There's another story, which is that I don't remember exactly how old I was, but if I had to guess,
Not 37,
not 37.
because you've never done that before.
This is
until
new.
today.
This one's brand new.
Right.
It's just getting started. I would say as a teenager, I kind of something inside of me said that there's a need within our school, with everything that we have going, that there's something that we need to be becoming a little bit more sensitized to. And yes, so much of your conversation is about chinuch and about and parenting. And we're obviously working within a moisid which is all about understanding the child, and especially within a Chabad, that we understand that the yeshiva is much more than just the academics, a subject that the Rebbe often spoke about. Yet, in some way, there was with all the good going on, there was an understanding that we're seeing many students struggling with anxiety, students not wanting to come to school, and depending on the age, the nature of what was going on, the family situations, and they're often referring out to different resources. And there was there was an understanding that the time came to do something about that and bring someone in. And it was, when I got that call, I knew, it was one of those moments for me. It was, just to say, you're speaking about my birthday today, I had the opportunity to have a surprise birthday party in yeshiva, which was celebrated together with all the menalim of the yeshiva and many of the therapists that I work with, a team that we've been building over the past couple of years, which really speaks a testament to for me, just to the understanding of the team, of the mechanchim that are in the yeshiva, as well as very dedicated therapists that work with us, that we're really working together. We're here to support them. We're here to support the teachers, and that's what we do. We're a resource. We have many therapists that work with us. We oversee a lot of the other services that go on within the school. Just a central resource that parents grew very organically, and we've been building, and we hope to continue to grow with tremendous support from the board of directors and all the menalim, et cetera. Parents reach out to us for referrals, for consultation. Can you see is there someone that can see our son for a couple of sessions, or et cetera, et cetera. And that's that's the student wellness support. And I have to say, there are many other yeshivas that have been reaching out to me and other people on our team saying, we've been hearing about the work that you're doing. And I'm really proud to say that Altera, in this department, we're really on the vanguard as far as furthering the chinuch of our students by understanding that even if it's something a little bit new about bringing a therapy department within a yeshiva, if that's what our students need, then that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so now that people understand a little bit about who you are and where you're coming from and what you're doing in the community, you want to have a conversation with me?
I'm here.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to ask you a question. We didn't prepare this, so maybe I'm catching you off guard. You studied Chassidus?
Yes, a little bit.
A little bit. You like it? You enjoy it?
Yeah.
You find it personally meaningful?
Yeah, it's a process, but yeah.
I respect that comment, meaning to say it's not just you open it up and it's automatically as meaningful as you would wish it to be. You have to work. You have to put in the work. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me personally, people always ask me, well, what should I learn to be inspired? It's not what you learn, it's how you learn.
That's right.
You could learn anything. It's just if you're willing to work with it, and like you say, it's a process of living with the ideas, applying them, trial and error, figuring out how to do it, how not to do it. Yeah, at any rate, but I was vetting you, and I was saying, okay, so you've learned Chassidus, and you like Chassidus, and through a process you have found personal meaning in Chassidus. So here's the question I want to ask you. How can people who are coming from a yeshiva background distinguish between what Torah has to offer as far as understanding our inner workings and what the therapeutic world has to offer? And how important is that distinction? So that's my question. No pressure.
Okay. No pressure. Okay. Let me give a shot at it. So first of all, Taub, you're a man of words.
I like
right?
words.
You like words, right?
I do.
So we'll take the two words, therapy and psychology.
Yes.
And just take a look at what the origin of those words are and what they actually mean, right? So therapy comes from a Greek word similar to the word therapy, which means to heal. I've heard once someone refer to it that it's actually very similar to the word therapé, to heal.
Oh, wow.
Right?
And by the way, it's Parshas Mishpatim.
We're getting there.
Oh, really? That's good. I'm anticipating your direction. Okay.
Okay. The second word is the word psychology.
Okay.
Which means, in Greek, again, the logic of the psyche or the logic of the soul. And as I've shared with you, a letter to the Rebbe, where the Rebbe actually writes to a psychologist how he looks forward to his encounter with him, because our studies we share similar interest in understanding the workings of the mind.
Right. There's a letter of the. Wasn't that psychologist from Chicago also?
Yes, he was.
I remember because it stuck out to me because, yeah.
So in sometimes in some ways,
But say it again, because I like it got swallowed up. The Rebbe writes to this psychologist from Chicago that he's looking forward to their meeting because
being that his study is a study of psychology, which is the logic of the psyche and the soul, and Chassidus is the study of the logic of the psyche and the soul. So we have so much to talk about.
Right. It's very interesting that the Rebbe is. First of all, we know that Rebbe found common ground with everybody and whatever their expertise was, whether it was like finance or the military or whatever it is. The Rebbe would always find himself very comfortable in every discussion. But it's interesting that you showed me that letter, and the Rebbe is saying that basically, hey, I'm coming from a background of studying Chassidus, and we have a common language here.
Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk. So I want to kind of divide the conversation into two parts, which is what is therapy and psychology at the heart of it? In other words, what is it? And then in a way, why I think to some degree there's something threatening about it, where sometimes psychology steps out of its line, right? Which brings me to, like you were saying, it's Parshas Mishpatim, in which the Torah says "V'rapa yirapa," the healer shall heal, and the Gemara famously says "Mikan shnitin rishus l'reif l'rapis," right? That it was given permission for the healer.
Right, you
to
shouldn't
heal.
take for granted that this is something that should be done. Right
Now, if we're going to
Torah
use
gives permission for it. Yeah.
And when the Rebbe was asked about psychology, about working with therapists, I've seen the Rebbe refer to this Maimer Chazal, that today there's a specialized field about that studies the mind, and the same way Chazal said this about regular general medicine, that Nitin Rishus L'Reif L'Rapis, however many years ago, that would apply today to the field of psychology, although it is a soft science and it's still a developing field. That the Abisher tells us that this is who we turn to when there's a need for healing. So that's so like this. So the idea now, just like when it comes to a doctor, right? So we know the Rebbe would often say that a doctor has to stay within his lane. Right. So if someone would come to the doctor and say, a doctor said that, there's no hope and da-da-da, it was like, it's not their role.
Right. Your job is to heal.
Your job is to heal.
Not to say doom and gloom. Right.
Exactly. Right. So in a way, I think when it comes to the field of therapy, you can say that you could say the same thing, which is that there's a distinction between what we call Chochmah and Torah. Right. So you have, like famously, like we know that he says, what's the expression? Someone says yesh chachma b'goyim tamin, and Torah b'goyim al tamin,
right?
Which is that
if someone tells you that in the world outside of Torah there is wisdom, it's
believe them.
Can believe them. But that famous saying sort of clearly is operating on a very clear distinction between what's Torah and what's Chochmah, and I don't think a lot of people necessarily know what that means in a practical sense. Like, okay, the world doesn't have Torah for us, but they do have Chochmah. Okay, so tell me what's the difference between Torah and Chochmah.
Okay, so one way of putting it would be that Torah is what offers us the why. What's happening here? Why are we here? What is this world that we're living in? What's our purpose here? How are we to live our life? It's a direction, right? Torah is from the word Hera, which means direction. Whereas in Chachma is a science, right? The mechanism. How does something work? What are the skills that breaks things down?
How it works.
How it works.
To why it works that way. The purpose behind it. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
And
or what you call it, they can break down the mechanics of it and explain how it operates, but they can't explain to you the ultimate existential meaning behind it.
That's right.
Right.
So to me, it's like when you'll often hear people like having psychology and this and that. It's like, there's so much to be grateful for that there's actually a field, right? One of the reasons I think we get tripped up is like because we hear, because psychologists and many of the authors that write their books, it's meshed. Their philosophy of life is meshed together with what they have to offer.
Can I insert a word here or a term? Value system.
Yeah. Right. So and in a way that's really important. That's why the Rebbe would often speak about that it's important to consider the therapist that you go to, someone that's either God-fearing or respectful of those who are God-fearing. So they're sensitive not to superimpose their value system on to their client. So that's the sensitivity, really. So therapy is just a developed field of healing that studies it's psychology, studies the logic of the mind, and what it's doing is it's just the same way medicine has developed. So there's a development of the study of the mind, and really that's what they have to. That's their offering. Their offering is it just breaks things down.
So to make that distinction a little bit more clear,
Sure.
one might go to a therapist to ask, how might I accomplish something that I value? I want to do it. I value it, but I'm having difficulty doing it on my own. And the therapist might help me to figure out how to accomplish that thing that's important.
Correct.
As opposed to coming to them and saying, I have no idea what my values are. I don't know what's important. Tell me what's important. Tell me what my values should be.
That's right.
And I think that, Rabbi Dr. Tursky, Olav Shalom, his yahrzeit, I just want to mention, was just a few days ago. It was Erev Shabbos, Yud Tes Shvat. And he was always very good to me. He gave me a lot of time. And once he explained that he said, he was a psychiatrist, he had an MD, and he said about psychiatry, because that was his credentials. He said a psychiatrist is a mechanic. Well, what is a psychiatrist? Is a mechanic? He said, you go to the mechanic because you tell him, I need my car working. And the mechanic fixes your car, but he doesn't tell you where you should drive. In other words, you have to come into the therapeutic relationship understanding, hey, I'm trying to get to this place. I have my goals in life based on my value system, which are already clear to me, but I'm not able to get there. My car's not working. So help me get my car working so I can accomplish the things that are important.
Yeah. And it's like, to me, in some ways, it's similar to the advent of the internet, like meaning like,
Wow.
there's something very neutral. Is psychology something forbidden, or is it something neutral?
Right. Or to use the Hasidic terminology, it's klippa, but is it klippas gimel klippas tameas, or is it klippas noiga? Right.
And
Right.
based on how,
Right.
on our value system, how are we to relate to it?
Right.
Right. So I think the reason it sometimes is seen as worse than it is because of the value system that we hear that kind of comes through and kind of skews that. And that is our responsibility, and that is a sensitivity. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen a growth of having more from therapists as well. That's for
Because
many.
people recognize that they do need somebody who not only knows how the healing works, but has a value system which is congruent with the person who's seeking the healing.
It's a plus.
It's so interesting you compare it to the internet. I was at a Shabbaton 2 weeks ago in Chicago, which is my hometown. So someone was asking about the internet. And it's interesting, Thursday night, one of our topics, I think the 8 p.m. topic Thursday night is internet. But they were asking about internet. And I said, one of the big dangers is that today we listen to a lot of these pundits who we think are so wise, and they're telling us basically what our values should be. And I said, it's very dangerous. The purpose of the internet is to look up on YouTube how to fix a broken doorknob. That was just the example that I used. But fitting it into the paradigm that you set forth, I'll say it like this. These tools that exist today, like the internet, like modern psychology's understanding of the mind, they're exactly that. They are tools. In other words, they can tell us how things break, how things can be fixed, but it's not where we should go for the why, for the, is this worthy of being a goal that we pursue? Or maybe I'll give you another set of fancy words. I remember I once wrote a column for Ami years ago when I used to write the weekly column, and someone was asking about therapy, and I said something which some people were very offended by. It's very interesting. The people who were offended by it, as opposed to people who were not offended by it, the people who loved it were all therapists, and they contacted me later and said, oh, you said good. And it was the non-therapists who were like offended on the behalf of the therapist. What was the word that I used? The word I used was amoral. I said, psychology is not immoral. It's not inherently telling you to do wrong things, but it's not moral. It's not, or at least not the way we define morality. It's amoral. It doesn't have, or at least in the purest sense, it shouldn't have a moral code. So then where's the morality? You have to come in with a sense of morality. So if you come to the therapist and say, here are my values, I want to say Tillim Shabbos Mevorchim, and I'm not I'm just
That's
giving
it. That's it.
a realistic example of a struggle a person might have in life. Because this Shabbos Mevorchim, and I'm already dreading it. So I looked last Shabbos, was like, oh, thank God, it's not yet
It's
Shabbos.
also the Hayom Yom of 2 days from now.
Yeah,
Chafei
and
Shvat,
it's a lot of children and children's children.
Mhm.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can go to a therapist and say, not should I say Tillim Shabbos Mevorchim, but I want to say Tillim Shabbos Mevorchim because it says in Hayom Yom to do it. But I'm having trouble doing that.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. And that's the distinction. Chachma and Torah.
What if no pressure, but what would you think? What would you think of if I said, give me an example of an insight into the how, into the mechanism that we are privy to in the modern world that just makes it easier to use this mind body system that we were granted? Like, give an example of a modern insight.
Like going under the hood? What
Yeah,
does it look
going
like to
under
go
the hood, right? Exactly. That just makes it easier to use this machine.
Okay, so I'll share a story. I
Okay.
think that will perhaps illustrate this point. So I had a student, parent reached out to me. He was in 7th grade, a 13-year-old boy. He was doing great in yeshiva for a long time, for all his years. And he came home and he shared with his mom that he has doubts in Tzveikus and Emunah, right? And it's it actually struck me. Like, if I remember correctly, I asked her, like, why are you coming to me? Like, go to
Right.
go to the teacher, go
Right.
to the
This is a
principal,
wrong
go to the
department.
mashpia.
This
It's
is the wellness department.
right?
We deal with. Right. You go.
Somehow the mother
Right.
intuited, right?
She knew it wasn't.
She didn't know what it was, but it just
In other
seemed-
words, you're saying like he has doubts in faith. So speak to a rabbi.
yeah,
Why are you talking to a mental health guy?
right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
But I agreed.
Okay. Did you sense that the mother had a mother's intuition? Is that why
yeah,
you
I
agreed?
think she kind of knew that there was. I think also she tried speaking to her son, and her son wouldn't offer
Mhm.
much.
Mhm.
So she understood that one of the things that her son needed was perhaps someone that he may feel safe to speak with. Have that privacy. Be protected. Won't be shared further, which is something that you kind of have that in the therapy room. And I remember I meet with him, and long story short, I'm kind of like just trying to see, maybe just normal questions. And I asked him, initially I asked him, did anything happen recently? Like, nothing happened, anything
Right.
changed? I go through, I'm not figuring out what's going on.
Mhm.
And then I asked him the following question. I was like, is there something that happened? You're just not comfortable telling me what happened. Okay. And he says, yes,
Mhm.
there is something. I'm like, did you share this with anyone?
Mhm. So instead of asking what happened, because you couldn't do that,
Right.
you said, "Is there something?" But you wouldn't share it.
Exactly.
But right.
And I even said that
Right.
even and if and you wouldn't share it, I'm not going to ask you to share it.
Mhm.
Right. So like
Mhm.
that, it stays with you.
Right. Right.
And he says there is something that
Okay.
happened 2 weeks ago around the same time when
Mm.
these challenges, and you have to like, it wasn't just that he had these doubts. It took a huge toll on him. Right.
Right.
His mother saw everything was different about him. He was like carrying this burden around with him. So I asked
So the
him,
mother didn't know what happened either, but she knew, and she didn't even know that something happened, but somehow intuitively she knew these were not religious questions. This was an expression of some to use the word trauma. It's some type of a traumatizing experience that the child went through.
and this is an
Which just
yeah, go.
to me, before you tell me how the story continued, but it's so funny. It's not funny. It's tragic. But how often I get a call from people who say, "You're a smart rabbi. You got pretty words. Explain to him. Answer this guy's questions." And it's like 90% of the time, that's not what it is. It's not that he needs a better speech on Emunah. There's something that this person's going through on an emotional level.
Correct. Now, when I did meet with him, I did rule out because it's not, it's possible that as a 13-year-old, his mind's developing and he may have some questions, and it may be that that is so concerning to him that it would throw him off, and then it would be part of the job would be normalizing it, and then seeing what the process would be, understanding what the questions were. But it just wasn't, that's not what it was, right? I was able to, in my work,
You're saying
discover that
sometimes
wasn't.
religious questions really are religious questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and
Sometimes the internet is just the internet.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have a announcement and a few donors, so I'm just going to ask I'm going to put you on the clock for another 60 seconds.
Okay.
So
60 seconds, 59, 58.
bring this home, and there's a lot of interesting stuff here, which I would love to unpack and sit
We have
here.
Yankee
But I
birthday
want to
boy.
know, what does this
Clive
have
has
to
a
do
request?
with the campaign that
What
we're
does it have to
running
do with the
tonight?
campaign?
These are some heavy stuff that, as a community, I think we're still in the process of understanding and healing. And bring it home for us, and get the people to give.
Okay, so let me.
On your birthday.
With the 30 seconds you have left.
Okay, I'll just finish the story. That's okay. And then
Yeah.
Right, Hal?
Don't leave us hanging.
Okay, so what I asked him, did you share now this thing that you're not ready to share with me? Did you share it with your
anybody?
anyone?
Uh-huh.
No, didn't share with my parents. Would you share it with your parents? I wouldn't share it with them, right? Did you? Would you? And then I realized something, right? He has a secret that's clearly right. He's ashamed of, right? And he's holding the shame. He doesn't want to share it with me. What does he do? He doesn't share it with me. Doesn't want to share it with his parents. What does he do? He doesn't share it with them. But now he doesn't want to share it with Hashem, right? I asked him that. So what do you do then? You cancel him out, right? So to me, it's like you go under the hood, right? You kind of on the front end, what you're looking at over here is a child that's saying, "I have Svekas and I'm doubting," and it's so clear.
So superficially, it looks like a religious issue.
Exactly, and what you were dealing with was just shame, that presented itself. So that ability to be able to do that work and unpack what's going on, with Hashem's help. And then, what was interesting there was learning how to work with shame when the person wasn't ready to speak about it, for another segment, clearly.
Yeah.
But this is something, Rabbi Taub, and really to bring it home to the work that you're doing. To me, I was like, what a gift for this student, who we were able to work through it over, during that session, right? In real time, right when it happened. But how many people do you hear of, in their later teens and 20s and 30s who come with these questions, right? And now they're burdened with their, the shame that they have around whatever behavior they were engaging with, something else that happened that now translates around their religious issues, right? So having, people such as yourself who speak to this, to speak to people, that we're not just here to preach to people, we're here to speak to them, we're here to understand them and help them better understand what it is that they're going through and make sense of what they're going through, and then offer them the ability to reconnect with Hashem and have a deeper connection. To me, that's the holiest work. So thank you.
And thank you for taking some of the precious 24 hours of your birthday to join us. And I definitely enjoyed it. And I'll tell you, it was going through my mind. It was probably going through people's minds while they're watching you speak to me. I have to have you back, and we have to do like a whole series. Like we have to really get it. We have to talk when there's no clock ticking, and we can just talk for hours.
That's Hashem.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Yankel. And I personally look forward to hearing some of that. And we have another guest in the studio who, considering she is a parent and she needs to be home by 10 o'clock to put her kids to bed. So we had a particular. Was I not supposed to say that? What's the matter? Testimonials, and then straight to our next guest. Well, we're going to have changing of the guards while I read these testimonials. And this is going to be number 9 I got on my screen. It's a testimony from someone who writes, I am a psychologist, and I have found that Rabbi Taub's teachings of Hasidus and personal insight bring all that I have learned professionally to a whole new level. This is testimonial number 10 in front of me. I have struggled with significant issues in my life and took Rabbi Taub's parenting courses, which I've gained tremendously from. After that, I was hooked to SoulWords, and why does it always come out of my mouth like that? And probably listened to every single talk more than once. You have a diehard fan here. When I came across the trauma-related podcast, why would you give me these testimonials as a lead-in for the "I'm not a psychologist" segment? These are just making the case more and more. But whatever. Then again, he thinks he could talk about like all these love and give your kids things, even if you and then think that people won't bug him to like validate them and everything. When I came across the trauma-related podcast, I finally found myself. It's as if nobody ever affirmed people in the religious Orthodox community or something. I've been in trauma therapy with an amazing therapist for over half a year now and am on my way to recovery. I'm glad I went into therapy with all the spiritual knowledge from my SoulWords, since the outcome would have looked very different without it. May my healing be as chus for Rabbi Taub and his entire family, and may Hashem give you the kayach to continue with all your holy work of spreading Hashem's light to the world. It's strong words. I'm sorry for my sarcasm. What I really meant to say, and we have a guest in studio right here with us. All right, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to go straight to our guest. There'll be time for a peanut gallery later, right?
Till dawn, Chaim. You and I, we live in the same neighborhood, so you can come to my porch.
Speaking of which, I want to read a dedicated donation.
Dedication?
Yes. Anyone whose neighbor is going to give, put money where their mouth is, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Clearly, you've been taking the recycling out, and maybe even some of theirs. Now I lost it. Okay. Oh, come on. Ellie Stern, $360 in appreciation of the best next door neighbor. Is that nice? And by the way, if you're a member of the Five Towns who uses Rabbi Taub's backyard as a Shabbos shortcut, and if you're from there, you know what I mean, this would be your time to pay some thanks. Yes. Okay. All right.
I had $1 for everyone to cut through that backyard. Okay. Yeah. What's going on? Testimonial or
is the camera on our
going
guest?
to the guest?
Live in studio.
Live in the studio.
We have Sarah Blau.
Can I give the proper title? Extracurricular director of Beis Rivka, because we want to mention we had 2 guests from Olei Torah earlier, so we want to mention all the Meisters Chinuch, and we want to make sure that acknowledge Beis Rivka. Okay, fine. So
first of all, just to set the record, my kids are sleeping. 10 o'clock would be a little late.
You just used that in a crafty way to get us.
But what I really want to share, Rabbi Taub, and to the audience, is a little bit of the impact going a few years back of some of the teachings. And I want to go back to the recordings that you made for the JLI Soul Maps course. Those 6 recordings, I remember listening to them. I listened to them on long car rides, like to Beis Rivka Shabbaton and stuff, listening to them. And it was like a light went on. I like understood things for the first time. And I remember I was thinking back to like in seminary when Mrs. Chitra gave us this like exercise to do, where she wrote a full sentence, like the Zappies zonked over the Zents. And then she asked us questions, like what did the Zappies do? They zonked. Over what? The Zents. And she was showing that you can really literally spit back information without having any idea what it's talking about. And I felt a little bit like that. I was like, oh, I finally understand what the zappy is and the zonks and the sense. Like, I'm not just spitting out words, and you crystallize the ideas. And then when I taught that Soul Maps course, I taught it to the high school girls. I taught it to women. And suddenly I was finding that it was resonating with people. Now, I don't know if you even know this. One year, Yutas Kislev, we made entire workshops based on that course. So we had 6 rooms, and each room, it was all...
Oh, I remember. It was like a Yutas Kislev fair.
Like an exhibit.
And had exhibits. That does ring a bell.
Right,
yes.
and it was all ready made because you titled it. There was a flow. It was smooth, and it was really relevant to
and
the girls.
And they went from room to room. It was like going through the Tanya. Yeah.
Exactly, the Yechidos. And I think that big picture view was the first time that I understood it, because, you learn, whether it's in Chitas or in high school, you learn it, but, that zooming out and really understanding the flow. And, I saw every level. It resonated it. And like, remember the example of the rubber band?
Yes.
the outside and the inside, that if you keep pulling the rubber band, it's gonna, and that it was such a good visual. A rubber band could rip. So if we're only gonna, work on our outsides, so to speak, without working on our insides, the tension will get too much. So these examples were like just English, like talking to all of our animal souls, so to speak, like understanding. Even, by the way, the words outside, inside are very simple words.
Yeah.
Outside, inside. But like that, like it just explained kaiches and levushim in English.
Exactly.
Like
So if you translate koiches and levushim literally, you say soul powers and soul garments. Okay, I mean that's barely better than koiches and levushim.
right.
Yeah.
But the outside, inside, rubber band, like these words, and I also want to say that it's structured my understanding of Tanya and the psyche of a Yid, that my book Close to You was also based on the same divisions. It was it was those recordings from the JLI, but it's the Tanya map, it's the visualizations, it's all that really was the foundation for my further being able to understand it and then give it over and then teach it, whether it's like in the exhibits or in the Tanya book. And it's through my lens, it's filtered then, and that's the amazing, ripple effect, so to speak. One person's understanding the Tanya and giving it over, and then just continuing with this unbelievable spreading of Chassidus, of understanding.
I said last night, and I'll say it again because it's exactly what you're saying. I said, nobody should be afraid to teach things in their own idiosyncratic words, meaning the words that are peculiar and quirky to you and your way of thinking and your experience. Don't be afraid to teach that way, because you're afraid that no one else will understand. The truth is that's exactly when they will understand. And then what they'll do is they'll take it and repackage it in the words that are unique to them.
Right. The waiter, I mean, all the examples. You know what I'm talking about later? The waiter that...
Yeah, chapter 35, sure. Yeah.
So all those examples, they were helpful. I still use them. I still explain it. I still, understand it. Even the concept of how Mayach Shal Talalev, right? Impulse control, like neurological, like English words. I was like,
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah, he says, "Beteva yitzarase shekach netzara adam." I mean, he says it's neurological, yeah.
Right, except that by me it was the zappy over, the zank over,
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for that, and really, we're so grateful to have Chassidus in such an accessible manner. We're lucky. We're a lucky generation that we get to have it, and who hasn't listened to a podcast or a class or been a recipient in some way. Most recently, Rabbi Taub just came to Beis Rivka to do a question and answer session.
On Yud Shvat. With Rabbi Shimi Weinbaum, who's one of my great heroes.
Right.
Who also is involved in making the deepest truths accessible to everyone. He talks to an even tougher audience. He's talking to kids. I can't bring it down that far. Yeah.
Or, I mean, on every single level, like whether it was the high school students, the women, or coming to speak to the shluchais about Hakel and trickling down into their programs. So I guess that's really, the theme, translating it into a language people can understand so that people could then go and translate it further.
Yes, that's it. Translating it so other people can go and translate it the way they translate it. Yep.
So thank you.
Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you very much, Sarah. While you were having a conversation with Rabbi Raskin, or I should say, with our guest earlier, Yankel Raskin, I wanted to do this in preparation for tonight's segment. I wanted to do some role play with Chat GPT.
Oh. Okay.
And I was like, I didn't have time. And you know what? It was a lot. By the way, if you want to check it out, I made an account and started corresponding within like a minute and a half. During that thing, and I want to add, there's a whole bunch
While I was talking to Yankee, you were creating a Chat GPT account.
And creating, so we don't have enough time to go through all of it, but I was sort of asking it, why is it that people mistaken you for a therapist?
You asked Chat GPT why
people
mistake me for a therapist.
Yeah. Instead of like us theorizing, this guy's probably got...
Ask the Oracle.
Okay. Is Rabbi? This is what I asked. Is Rabbi Shais Taub a therapist?
You asked ChatGPT.
Yeah, I just started it. Yeah, a few minutes ago.
All right.
Rabbi Shais Taub is not a licensed psychologist.
Oh, you got it right.
Yeah. But he is, having said that, he is a renowned speaker, author, and teacher. If we could do a screen share, I would. Maybe I'll share some screenshots. But anyone could probably do this. I assume they'll get the same responses.
Yeah.
He's a renowned speaker, author, and teacher on topics related to mental health, addiction, and spirituality. He has written several books on these topics and has given numerous talks and workshops on them. Although he does not have a formal degree in psychology, he has studied and written extensively on topics related to psychology, particularly in the context of Jewish spirituality
I'm
and
really
mysticism.
shocked by how accurate this is.
Yeah. And then I asked, why do so many people assume he is a psychologist?
Oh, wow.
It is possible that some people assume Rabbi Shais Taub is a psychologist because he often speaks and writes about topics related to mental health and addiction, which are areas commonly associated with psychology. Additionally, his approach to these topics incorporate a deep understanding of Jewish spirituality and mysticism, which may lead some people to assume that he has training in both psychology and Jewish studies. However, it is important to note that while Rabbi Shais Taub is highly knowledgeable and experienced in these areas, he is not a licensed psychologist or mental health professional. It is always important to seek out the advice and guidance of trained professionals when dealing with issues related to mental health and addiction. And then I asked, is that to suggest that Judaism and spirituality is separate from mental health? No, not at all. Judaism and spirituality.
No, hold on. Yeah. He said no, not at all.
No, not at all. Why are you assuming the gender of ChatGPT?
Just, yeah.
Okay.
Good point. ChatGPT said no, not at all.
Yeah.
Okay. It just sounds
You know what?
emphatic.
We can put it on.
Can I look at it?
Yeah.
I want to make sure you're not making this up.
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. Judaism and spirituality can certainly be an important part of an individual's mental health and overall well-being. In fact, for many people, spirituality and religious practices can be a valuable source of support and meaning. However, it is important to recognize that mental health issues are complex and often require specialized training and expertise to address effectively. While spiritual practices can be an important part of a person's overall mental health care, they should not be seen as a substitute for evidence-based treatments. We have to censor that for the COL?
No, that's great.
As a substitute for evidence-based treatments such as therapy and medication when needed. It isn't also important. So here's what, there's a lot to, it's so meta because you were talking with Yankel about the idea of seeing, and you shared that anecdote from Dr. Twersky of appreciating therapy or as a tool rather than a source, or Viktor Frankl put it, there's the how and the why. And when people turn to a therapist for the why instead of the how, and not ironically, you see the same pattern of the same person then turning to the rabbi for the how, and you deal with that, and that's why we're talking about this.
He who will turn to the therapist for the why will ultimately turn to the rabbi for the how.
You heard it here first.
I don't even know. By the way, I should just major disclaimer: don't memify that or anything. I don't even know if I agree with that statement. I was just I heard you say it, and I just smoothed it out for you.
There is a book.
That statement was about as intelligent as ChatGPT. Meaning, ChatGPT is
that's the level of creativity that it's capable of.
ChatGPT is good at one thing: speaking in a smooth, convincing way, but it doesn't necessarily have any meaning behind it.
You know what it's like? It's like slam poetry. ChatGPT
sounds great, but it doesn't mean
as soon as you break it down,
and
take out some of the sort of rhyme. It's like, well, actually, that made no sense. I'm not even sure why I applauded just now. No, pick that mic right back up. Do not drop it ever again. That was terrible. But this is interesting. So I was talking to the tool about why we attribute ultimate meanings or spiritual meaning to people or things that are really only in the business or ought to be in the business of how. Yeah. And I would love to delve into how and why we often confuse those two. There's a great book. If I had to predict, we did a segment last time about books that might have been found in the Taub household bookshelves.
And you were pretty much wrong on 9 out of 10 of your guesses.
I got some of those
Yeah.
80s.
My brother David was on, and you had to guess.
Well, what about this one? Carl Menninger, Whatever Became of Sin.
I'm not familiar with it.
The
Sorry,
theme of the book is
sorry.
the Menninger Institute in Kansas City, and he was making the point in the book that, you know, if rabbis would be rabbis, then there wouldn't be as many people coming to his center and to him for his services. You know, so anyway, the vacuum sort of thing that was created. So I want to get there's a lot I wanted to get to. There's some
Well, you have
really interesting
pages here
stuff.
of Chat.
Yeah.
You have
2 minutes.
2
we have
minutes. I
to-
can't read all my pages of Chat GPT. You were
I-
doing that all while I was talking to Yanko Raskin the whole. Okay. At any rate,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So what's
Some of it is repetitive, but it's actually not. Okay, there's some funny stuff here, but it's going to have to wait. I do want to say this. There's something heavy that came up before, and I never shared this story with you. I only shared it like maybe, I'm not sure with who, but
and up, you're about to share it with like 1,000.
and it's
people.
maybe answers the rhetorical question of why are people surprised to hear that you're not a therapist when you say certain things.
Okay.
And it directly dovetails with some of the parenting stuff that we start with, and I think it brings it full circle. Maybe about 9 years ago, I attended a retreat and a support group for, and it was it was another, would say like someone from an Orthodox family. He was in his early 50s, and in the group, he shared about sexual abuse that happened by a 6th grade teacher, and he said he either shared about it once before with a therapist, but never in a group setting. And I won't go into some of the details of what was shared, but in like a very sort of muted voice, he was like murmuring something, and then once he repeated it, he kept saying, and I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell anyone. And it was over the course of 40 minutes or so. But what he shared a bit later, and obviously from what we know about abuse, and so much of it is in the more than the event itself, the
shame and the isolation.
shame and isolation
afterwards.
from not having where
anyone to tell. Yeah. Yeah.
So he explained a bit more what he meant by I couldn't tell anyone. He said he was a child of a Holocaust survivor who remarried after he came to America and sort of had a child later in life. And he didn't really have that much of a relationship with his birth mother. He lived with his father, and his father was deaf and dumb. If I'm not mistaken, he said as a result of what he experienced in the camps. And it was a very revealing story, I thought, because it wasn't a figure of speech when he said, I couldn't, right? He literally couldn't. And
Couldn't tell his father because his father couldn't even hear him.
right.
Wow.
So we're talking tonight about a community that's healing in so many different ways, and individually, collectively, and parents trying to become better parents, learning. But it like starts with just like the acceptance of.
So can I just speak to that because this is very heavy, but I just want to. I don't have the ability or desire to actually, and I couldn't even fathom. I can't hear everybody's pain. I can't. I mean, even the amount that I already hear takes a huge toll on me. But what I do try to do, and I believe it helps, and we can all do this, and it'll help even more, is sometimes just the way you talk about something, when you make it mentionable, when you take away the shame from it, you take away the whole secrecy, and you just talk about it, not like it's no big deal, but rather like it is part of life, and therefore it's okay to talk about, that itself makes people feel heard. Meaning they didn't actually go tell you, but they know that if they did have to tell you, you would be able to hear them because you've already put it out on the table and made it a fair topic of discussion. So I think, what I do try to do, and it's not a tactic, and I'm not doing this to create a certain effect. I do it because this is the way that I learn. When I'm learning, this is how I think, and that's why I teach this way. Whatever we learn in Torah, especially in Chassidus, it has to shed light on all of the human experience, including the most deep and dark aspects of being an embodied soul and everything that brings with it, and all the difficulties and the real challenges. And when my point is, when we're capable of speaking about that deep dark stuff in a way that's not sensational, and it's not, we don't make it shameful. We can, when we can speak about all of human experience with dignity, that itself, just that type of discourse alleviates a lot of the burden that people are carrying around with them. So
Words.
Yeah, words. Yeah. Literally, that the words that we use and the way that we use them lightens people's load. It takes the weight off. It takes the pressure off.
We're going to go to Burt Bacharach, and then we have a special guest in the studio.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
We're going to Burt Bacharach.
Well, I think we should the outro with some Burt Bacharach.
You could ask ChatGPT, by the way, if Burt Bacharach and Hal David wrote an extra verse of What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love, about the coming of Mashiach, what would it sound like? And I think ChatGPT would do it.
Or I could ask you, when Jews write music about love,
do they really mean
Mashiach?
Yeah.
Is it code? This was a really big hit last night, and we asked them to come in again. Could we put camera 4 on our special guest?
Avram Abba Taub, you're back.
I'm back.
Now, Abba, you surprised me last night. And by the way, some people were cynical enough to think that was set up.
No, it wasn't set up.
It was totally spontaneous. I did not know you were going to come here. He says, get closer to the mic. Closer to the mic. Closer.
Close enough?
No. Closer. Like
Closer?
an inch away from your mouth. Yeah, very good. David, you're going to have to learn how. This is not such a polished show over here. You could just scream out, "Get closer to the mic." It's okay. So some cynical people thought that was scripted.
Then we would do it again. We could just do the same thing again.
Do what again? The surprise?
surprised,
Oh, I
yeah.
could be surprised
Yeah,
again.
you could just do
If
it.
I could have faked being surprised the first
You
time,
do
I
it
could have
twice.
faked being surprised the
Sure.
second time.
Yeah.
But tonight I knew you were coming.
Well, yeah.
But now I'm going to surprise you.
What's the surprise?
I'm going to expose something you told me in private. Don't get too nervous. Okay. Last night after the show,
Oh.
you expressed some regret. I think Yisrael, your brother, actually kind of planted this seed of doubt in your mind. You said, I shouldn't have said something. You asked me, what do I study in yeshiva? And I said, various Judaisms, and I made it sound like there are multiple Judaisms. And I shouldn't have said that. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been thinking about it?
Thought about it, yeah.
Did you come up with a way of redeeming that? Because I did.
What's your way? Your way.
Did you come up with a way?
I did, but it would be too technical to share.
It's too
It
technical.
might be
I
technical.
bet you what I came up with is along the same lines as what you came up with. I just will probably be able to say it in a way that doesn't sound so technical.
All right, go
Okay,
for
tell me if this is what you thought of. So Avram Abba felt bad that he said he studies various Judaisms, and it makes it sound like, God forbid, there are multiple Judaisms.
it. Which is not the case.
Which is not the
Not the
case. There was Torah Achas. There was one Torah, one Hashem, and one Torah. But I thought about it like this. Here's what I'm going to say. The first letter of the oral law, meaning the first word of the first Mishnah of all of Mishnah, is what?
It's a mem.
It's a mem, right, from the word,
Me'emasai.
which means
When?
when do you say the nightly Shema? Yes, very good. And the last letter of all Mishnah, at the very end of Uktzin, is what letter?
It's a mem.
Is also a mem from.
Bashalim.
Very good. Hashem oiz li ametein, Hashem yivorech ame shalom. Very good. So the first letter is a mem, the last letter is a mem. Now, mem, what number? You want to do a little numerology?
Yeah.
Okay. What numerology, gematria, if you want to be from, is mem?
40.
40. 40 is the 40 days that Moses spent on Mount Sinai receiving the Torah. 40 is connected to Torah. Okay, so the first letter of the Mishnah of the oral law is a mem. The last letter of the oral law is a mem. But the difference is the first mem is an open mem. The last mem is a closed mem. The open mem represents Nigla de Torah, the revealed aspects of Torah. When Torah is speaking about accessible ideas like laws of damages and stuff like that, that are physical things you could relate to. The closed mem represents Torah's hanister, the concealed mystical dimension of Torah. When Torah is speaking about souls and spiritual stuff. So there are two Torahs. There's Torah of the Nigla de Torah, and there's Torah's hanister. There's the revealed and the concealed. That's why I have the open mem and the closed mem, each one being 40, representing 40 days and 40 nights. And there's your Judaisms.
Those are my Judaisms. I believe I said that my Judaisms were Chassidus and Negla. I don't know if I made it clear enough. But
And by the way, the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya's name was?
Shneir.
And Shneir is?
Shneir.
Shneir.
Two lights.
Two lights. The light of Nigla and the light of Nister.
Tanya and Shulchan Aruch.
Tanya and Shulchan Aruch. Balatanya, yeah, Shulchan Aruch. And also, I'll tell you another thing. Which one of the 12 tribes was renowned for his intense Torah study?
Yehuda? No? No.
Well, he started the yeshiva in
Yisachar.
Goshen.
Okay, he started the yeshiva.
Yisachar,
Yisachar.
right.
Okay.
And Yisachar had a partnership with Zvulun. Zvulun would do the business and pay
That's right.
for Yisachar. Okay, so Yisachar was scholars. They knew how to do Kiddush HaChodesh and all that technical stuff. Yisachar is spelled in a funny way. It's spelled with two sins. And some people even pronounce it Yisaschar. And it actually happened in 770 in Parshas Vayetze when they read the tribes, the names of the children of Yaakov Avinu, that the Balkaida pronounced it Yisaschar with two sins. And the Rebbe told the Balkaida, the one who was doing the public Torah reading, no, you don't pronounce it Yisaschar, even though there's two sins, the letter sin. You pronounce it Yisachar because the first sin, the first letter sin, is pronounced. The second letter sin is silent. And the Rebbe said in the name of his father that that's to indicate that in Torah, Yisachar is the tribe that studied a lot of Torah. You have the pronounced and the silent. The pronounced means the revealed legalistic Torah, and the silent is the hidden mystical Torah.
Interesting. You mentioned Yisachar Zvulun. That's what we're doing. You're doing the Yisachar. This is the Zvulun.
Very
That's
good.
where we
So
are.
we're looking for a few good Zvulins out there.
There could be more than one Zvulun.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
could be more than one Zvulun. That's right. We're looking for, that's a good tie-in, Avraham Abba. That is good.
Gotcha.
Okay, we need some Zvulins to step up and do some big donations.
Yeah, some big Zvuluns.
Some big Zvulins with some big donations to make our Torah study and teaching possible. Yeah. That's awesome. What's happening tomorrow night? You going to be with us tomorrow night? You going to pretend to surprise us again tomorrow night?
I could surprise you again tomorrow night. Yeah.
Okay.
Should I wear like a red hat or something? That would be surprising.
Don't tell
No, don't
tell
do
us,
that.
because then
Okay.
you'll diminish the surprise. What's on the agenda tomorrow night? You have the
Okay,
schedule?
I do have the schedule.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, you're doing an Ask Me Anything live Q&A.
Wow, that could be crazy. Ask me anything.
Anything.
Wow, okay.
Interesting. Anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is Rabbi Taub takes your real questions and shows you the art of answering. So it's not only that you're getting asked questions, you're showing how to answer asked questions.
Teach a man to fish. Yeah.
Teach a man to fish. And
Yeah.
you can
Feed a man to
your whole
fish.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teach a man to fish. Yeah.
And the second
Showing
one,
how to answer the questions.
Right. The second one, which I noticed was quite similar, actually. The Rebbe's treasure of Igas Kodesh.
You know that it's similar.
I know that it's similar.
Because you understand that ultimately the methodology for answering questions properly is the Rebbe's methodology in Igros Kodesh.
That's right.
So you understand that the first topic is connected to the second
I'm
topic.
assuming you're going to mention that,
Of course I'm going to mention it. Yes.
which is studying the Lubavitcher Rebbe's letters as a source of clarity and guidance, which is really the answer to the first
To
segment.
the first topic.
But I'm not going to spoil it. I won't spoil it.
That's fine. People won't get it. It's fine. You know,
Okay.
it's interesting. One of the insecurities I have often is that I think I've said things too explicitly, that it was too heavy-handed, it was too on the nose. And rarely is that insecurity, rarely does it prove to be correct. In most cases, it's the exact opposite. I think I've said things very clearly, and people are like, no, you should have said that. Well, I thought I did. So it's okay. You could say it and say it again and say it again and say it again. Okay. How are we wrapping up over here, David? Just tell me. What? We're saying goodnight? Okay. So listen, everyone, soulwords.org/live. Campaign's still going. We're trying to raise $500,000 to continue the work of SoulWords and to expand. Please give generously, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Here again. Okay. And we want to thank again our co-host Chaim Cohn and Avram Abba and all of our guests that were here with us tonight.